I think people have a tendency to look at Social Security as a way to bypass decumulating their investments instead of waiting. It's expected that you're going to pull from your investments, but don't use Social Security as a way to not pull from your investments because you've not experienced that before and it's scary.
Welcome to the Fiscal Foxhole, the podcast proving you don't need a degree in finance, just some grit, a game plan, and maybe a sense of humor. Your hosts are retired Army veteran Rob Moore and retired Marine veteran Omen Quelvog. Together, they'll help you dodge financial landmines, call in the air support on your savings, and laugh at the ridiculous money mistakes we've all made. If you can survive mandatory fund days, you can survive personal finance. Welcome to the Foxhole.
It's Wednesday. You know what that means, Rob?
It's time to get back in the foxhole.
That's right. It's time to get back in the foxhole. Welcome to this week's episode of the Fiscal Foxhole. I am Omen Quelvog, and I would say I'm joined here by Rob, but today we are geographically displaced, as if you're watching any of our social media clips, you'll notice my background is a little bit different, different foxhole this week.
Omen's joining us by radio. He's sitting there with his full radio gear on, the full pack.
That's right.
With his radio man assisting him to join us virtually in the foxhole. It's good to see you. I know we always do this virtually, but of course, running with the bit. Yeah, we're definitely very different locations. Omen, today you're joining us from California.
California. And, you know, by what you told me before we started the episode, but when we hit record, I'm actually joining you by HF radio, if any super nerds out there right now. But yeah, HF radio, a little bit of static in there. We got to slow down on the preamble. So yeah, out here in California, out visiting my mom and dad. And that is one of the joys of doing what we do 100% remotely, 100% virtually, is that we can get on the road and still get the job done and dig our foxholes wherever we go.
Said with a true servant's heart. You could have taken this week off very easily, and here you are. Yeah, no reps off. I love it. Yeah, back in the foxhole once again to talk about Social Security.
Yeah, of all things, Social Security.
Right.
You know what though? This I mean, this is probably going to sound a little bit corny, but I love what I do so much that this really is. It's not work, right? Like I love doing this. I love, as nerdy as it sounds, talking about Social Security, which is exactly what we're planning to do today as we get into the situation. And, you know, Rob, I do want to point this out here as we start to go through this episode. You and I had some great conversations out of the foxhole talking about the format of the show. And what would a military show be without an op order type format to the outline? So we are going to change. You're going to notice, listeners, you're going to notice a little bit of a change to the format of our show. And for this first part here, we're getting into the situation.
Situation.
The situation is that we're talking about Social Security. We've mentioned this a couple of times on our show, just in general, talking about how Social Security turns into one of those guaranteed forms of payment. It stacks on top of your pension if you retire from the military. If you get some kind of disability as well, that's another form of guaranteed income, as guaranteed as it gets anyway. But there's been some news about Social Security and its funding. There's also some strategies for how you might want to claim strategies. So I thought today would be a great time for you and I, Rob, to walk listeners through what is Social Security? Like how do you add this to your portfolio? Is there anything that you actually have to do? So I thought it would be a great opportunity to do that today.
This is one of those rare episodes, valid for everyone, I think, to listen to, because
yes.
I don't know about you, but I've heard as many opinions about Social Security as many people as I've talked to. Like everyone's got very wild opinions about Social Security, or very secure opinions about Social Security, whichever way they're coming at it. But it is really interesting when it comes to this particular thing that everyone's really unsure, with good reason, because there's a lot of noise about it. But when it comes to them getting their tax refund back to them, no one's worried about that. If they've got a government security that they own, like a bond, even a long-term treasury bond, they're not worried about the government paying them back. But for some reason, this is kind of unique in a way that, you know, people think they're worried they're putting so much money into it. Maybe it's because they're forced to, they have to, that they might not get it back, or maybe it's so far off in the future. But either way, education goes a long way. I'm really glad we're doing this.
Yeah, well, you and I can't tell the future. All we can do is kind of look back at history. And I think that's exactly what I'd like to do today as we get into the headlines of why people might be worried about the future of Social Security. Again, you and I don't know what's going to happen, but I think we can look back to some earlier instances where Social Security was on the fence, right? And then we'll kind of walk through what happened then and what we expect might happen here in the next few years. But before we do that, it's time to get into the background.
Background.
The background is our week in military history. Rob, this is a pretty cool week this week. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong piloted the lunar module Eagle to a landing on the Sea of Tranquility, and just a few hours later, he became the first human to set foot on the moon, with Buzz Aldrin following him down the ladder just a few minutes after that. Rob, clearly, this is a big moment in history here, but the lead up to the moment of history of them landing on the moon, there was actually a lot that went into both Neil Armstrong's life and Buzz Aldrin's life, as they prepared to land on the moon. So what listeners might not know is that both men earned their stripes in combat. Armstrong studied aeronautical engineering at Purdue on a Navy scholarship and became a midshipman in 1949 and a naval aviator the next year. He saw action in the Korean War, flying the Grumman F-9F Panther off the USS Essex. He flew 78 combat missions for the Navy during that war. Aldrin's path ran through West Point. He graduated third in the class of 1951 with a degree in mechanical engineering, was commissioned in the Air Force, and flew jet fighters during the Korean War with 66 combat missions and 2 confirmed MiG-15 kills. His first kill came in May of 1953 near the Yalu River. The gun camera footage of the enemy pilot ejecting even ran in Life magazine. By the time Armstrong and Aldrin were strapped into the lunar module, they had already spent 2 decades building the discipline, the flight hours, and the split-second decision-making that combat and test pilot work demands. And as we've mentioned on previous episodes, luck is the interaction of preparation and opportunity. Well, the moon landing wasn't exactly lucky. It was years of preparation lined up with one irreversible moment where they had to commit. 16 seconds of fuel left and computer alarms going off all around them, and Armstrong took manual control of the lunar module and set her down anyway. And the rest is history. Rob, that was, just a little bit of background on what actually turned out to be a fairly significant event. And a lot of people didn't know that the lunar module was having problems, right, as they were trying to navigate it down to the moon surface. But all the training that had actually gone into not just being an astronaut, but the split-second training that they required in combat missions leading up to that, I think gave them both the ability to make those split-second decisions when it actually mattered the most.
Yeah, you and I have probably experienced this with the military because we've repped things so many times that when you're doing a specific rep of that thing that you do, and maybe a curveball comes in or it doesn't go as planned, instinct kicks in and you kind of know everything. This is that on an exponential level because 16 minutes of, or 16
seconds.
Minutes of fuel?
Seconds.
What was it? 60 seconds.
Seconds.
Even more. 16 seconds of fuel and you're landing on the moon. You're right. It's not like you can just, we'll set her down softly, we'll lose fuel and we'll just hop out, we'll be fine. I mean, it's life and death within 16 seconds, landing on a foreign body for the first time in human history. I don't know what prepares you for that, but if something does, then these guys were as close as it gets.
All right, well, that was a fantastic moment in military history. Let's move on to this week's Intel Update.
Intel Update.
This week's headline comes to you from Vanguard Research, and we've done some headlines from Vanguard Research Group before, and this one in particular I thought was kind of cool when they did research on when and how asset location matters. And this was research done just last month, completed by Daniel Jacobs and Joseph Zorn. Just a quick summary of the article itself is that Vanguard's research team makes the case here that what you invest in, so we're talking stocks versus bonds, i.e. your asset allocation, drives your returns way more than where you actually hold it. And that is like your 401k, Roth side versus traditional side, brokerage account. So this is your asset location. And Rob, you've actually done research on this as well in the retirement side of things, of if you put money in your 401k versus put it in a taxable account, like at the end of the spectrum, there's not a significant amount of difference. So the asset location doesn't matter nearly as much as your asset allocation.
Yeah, the location, there's benefits to all of different types of accounts: brokerage, tax deferred, and tax free. Or I guess we call it taxable, tax deferred, and tax free. Those are the three normal nicknames that we give them. There's benefits to each, and it's just varied based on the goal that you intend it for. That's another conversation. But yeah, to your point, what you actually put in these things really matters too.
Rob, let me ask you this. Vanguard here is basically saying don't overthink the account placement. Don't overthink it until you have that stock and bond mix locked in. Do you agree or disagree with this?
No, I disagree, because the account location, whether it's in a taxable, tax deferred, and tax free, is super important in regards to when you need the money. So I think you have to make a wise decision about where you're putting the money, because if I'm thinking to myself, I might need this over that bridge to retirement before you hit 59 and a half, and you go with this philosophy of like, well, it doesn't matter what account I put it in, I'm just going to focus on the allocation, then you could just throw it into your tax deferred, TSP or 401k, and then, okay, well, I'll worry about when and the goal I need it later. No, you have to lead with the goal first, make a sage decision about where to put it, and then worry about the allocation, which also should be pointed to your goal.
I think I might disagree with you a little bit on this one, right?
Okay.
Like Vanguard here is saying that the allocation is more important than where you put it. And where you put it, I think, is more of an optimization part of your portfolio. Whereas the mere fact that if you're 20 years old and you've got 100% equities and 0% bonds versus, a 50-50, like a balanced portfolio, I think that's going to make a significant difference versus whether or not you decide to put it in a 401k, an IRA, or a taxable account. I completely see what you're saying in terms of the timing of which you might need that money, but I think having an idea of what your allocation is, to me, it seems a little bit more important.
Well, asset allocation ain't going to fix the problem that you can't get your money when you need it. So if you need it prior to 59.5, sorry to restate my point once again, but if you need it prior to 59.5, it's in a tax deferred account, you've got a taxable and a tax penalty problem that asset allocation isn't going to account for, or isn't going to, I guess, fix that problem ahead of time. So perhaps these are two separate problems. I don't know if we prioritize one or the other. I think they're both super important. One's a rule problem, like do the rules jive with what you need it for? And the other one's, are you going to make it? Or is it going to be the right amount of risk and return required to meet your goal?
I had a couple other questions actually lined up here, but I actually think that we're going to wind up going around the same circle when we talk through these.
Probably.
And really, when we work through these kinds of questions, which is the questions really related around to, okay, well, does this matter so much for your E3, E4, O1, O2 versus your E9 and O5? Yes, I think we're still going to make those same points about asset allocation and versus your asset location. And then also one other question that I was going to have for you here was, what about your tax location? How does this play into things?
Same discussion, right? But again, it has to be aligned with when you need it and when you want to pay your taxes. So the taxable side, the tax deferred, the tax free, they're all taxed very differently, which we've gotten into before. That's just one more decision point. When do you need it? How much taxes do you want to pay, or do you want to pay the taxes now to get it tax free later? That's another discussion. I mean, these are multiple kind of the discussions happening in tandem, maybe in parallel rather than combined, because you can do any allocation you want in any location you want, which would create any tax situation that you would want. So what I see is kind of like almost how many permutations of those three things would there be? Like you have 3 times 3 times 3, so 18 permutations of those things. So I think if you look at it that way, maybe not feel so limited that you have to be in one or the other. One's more beneficial than the other.
I like how you put that, how many permutations of this, because you really are talking about the individual account allocation and location. And then you're talking through the household. How does this actually then feed into the actual household allocation and location? And each portion of it supports a different part of your life, a different part of your portfolio. And so it's actually, although the allocation is really, really important and it will move numbers, I think you do have to think about this holistically so that you know when you're getting money, when you're being taxed on that money, and how that money is actually growing or not growing. Like there's parts of this where if you're 50, 60, 70 years old, maybe you actually are leaning in on your investments and you need that. So you're going to put it in a safer location with less risk and less growth.
Great point. And I'll allow you to get back on track. We're going to just wander everywhere if we allow ourselves to, but I owe a mea culpa real quick. 3 cubed is actually 27, not 18. I was like, yeah,
nobody said that you were good at math, Rob.
Yeah, right. So hey, trust me with your money. I know how to math, right? All right. So anyway, continue. Keep going. Yeah.
No, I think that we have actually buried that point quite well. That asset allocation actually really is important, but there's a lot more to it than just that.
Before we leave out of it, though, I have one more thing to say, because I hear this all the time that, like, if you have a certain amount of stocks and bonds, that if you just mix them together, if you have a 50-50 or 60-40, that you're going to get some sort of delta in return, or alpha in return, as we call it, right? There's going to be some better return than you otherwise would have. The first thing is, I don't know what they're comparing that to, right? They said if you have a asset allocation can add up to about 0.3% annually in after-tax returns. I know that sounds small, but that's a big number annually, right? That's a big difference over time. But compared to what? Like maybe the exact same thing in all. I don't understand if you had all stocks versus all bonds, but that difference is huge if you're all in stocks or all in bonds. So I'm not quite sure what they're comparing that to. I imagine there's good research behind it. These are Vanguard people anyway. Yep. I'm sure it's good. But what I think is doing work behind the scenes is not necessarily that it's in stocks and bonds, but in the fact that stocks and bonds move differently at different times. Sometimes they move together, and sometimes, they move up together, they move down together. But generally speaking, they move independently. One goes up, one goes down. So if you take that behavior and stack on top of it frequent rebalancing, in other words, you take some from the side that's done well and put it in the side that hasn't, and then you capture the gain on that side, and then it rebalances again the next year. That's a benefit. And then also dollar cost averaging. So as the money's coming in, it might be going more towards the side that isn't as performing as well, and therefore in the future helps the return. I think that is doing more work than just some sort of balance between stocks and bonds, because the research is clear on that. Like over the long period of time, these stocks destroy bonds. Way like 3 times higher.
You just have to have the time. You just have to have the time.
Right. So I think the low correlation, the rebalancing, and the dollar cost averaging is probably doing more work together to create that 0.3% difference than just having a mix between the two by themselves and leaving it alone.
We'll put a link to the research there in the show notes if you want to look through that and maybe have get your own takeaways from it. Mm-hmm. But with that, we're going to move into execution. This week's episode, again, is going to be on Social Security and some of the claiming strategies around it. But before we do that, we want to get into a little bit more of what is Social Security. As we speak through this guaranteed, what we say is guaranteed as it gets portion of the income, there are some recent headlines. And I say recent headlines. It's been coming out here for a few years now that the Social Security Trust has been warning Congress, warning the public that the Social Security Trust is going to run out of money. That's what you've heard. Probably we saw this back just last month. They said now for sure in 2032 fourth quarter that we can expect that the Social Security Trust is going to run out of money. So what does that mean? Because Rob, I don't know what I'm not freaking out about it. Are you?
The amusing thing I tell clients when we talk about this First of all, we handle it maturely. We do model what if Social Security is reduced by 30%, 50%, or 25%. Yeah, we look at their plan. We check it out. We do the responsible thing. But the amusing kind of the way I put it sometimes is I tell them, like, hey, look, if Social Security ain't there by the time we retire, I'm going to be there with the pitchfork and the torch with you. Like, you know what I mean? I just don't. I think there's a lot of things as citizens we have a tolerance for when we pay our taxes, and we expect something in return, and usually in the form of infrastructure and tax incentives. I don't know, whatever you think your tax money should be used for. There's a big difference between that and when you're paying taxes and it's supposed to come back to you. And if that becomes threatened, I don't think anybody has a tolerance for that. I don't think anybody has a tolerance for that not coming back to them in the way it should, or the government that's supposed to be handling it a certain way. So I would be shocked, especially for you and me who are closing in on 50, if there's going to be any difference in what we expect versus what we get. I imagine it's probably the same. What I think this is going to look like is different expectations for folks that are younger than us.
Yeah. And we'll get into kind of why we think that way a little bit later in this segment. But for right now, what I wanted to do was to get into what exactly does Social Security look like today, so that we can then start to build a framework around with how might it change. So the very first point here is, what is full retirement age, and what do reductions and additions look like at a very basic level? So Rob, we know that full retirement age right now is defined as age 67. And I want to actually back up just a little bit here. And if you have not actually logged into the Social Security Administration website, so it's ssa.gov, go there and get your benefits estimate, claim your Social Security number. Definitely go out there and claim your Social Security number before somebody else does. And then it has this whole age ladder from age 62 to age 70 and what your estimated benefits would be. But it's defined by this full retirement age at 67. So Rob, what does it actually mean? What does age 67 mean in this whole ladder between age 62 and age 70?
I think you said it pretty well. It's just basically the starting point of how some various benefits might pay off when it comes to the retirement benefit of Social Security. So 67 is the starting point. Social Security, I guess it just assumes that that's the age when it makes sense financially, as far as the benefit is concerned, to start paying you back what you've put in, or paying you what you've deserved based on your earnings history. It doesn't mean that you have to retire at that age. It doesn't mean they expect you to work to that age. It just means that that's the starting point at which the benefits are calculated, and either deductions or increases are based on 67, which we're about to get into.
That's a great explanation, Rob. I think a few things that people need to keep in mind is some assumptions that Social Security makes. Number one is that you're going to continue to work on this increasing pay scale till age 65. That is an assumption. So if you decide that you're actually going to stop working for an income and you stop paying into Social Security, your benefits actually change. Those benefits, gone.
Well, I think it's important to note that's the calculator that you get from Social Security, right?
That's right.
So you'll get the statement. That's the assumption. You don't have to keep working to 65. It's just that's the assumption in the calculation. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that's clear, because I just said you don't have to keep working to 67 to get it. You know what I mean? So this kind of falls under that same caveat.
Right. So what I was going to say was on that, and that's a great point, right? Because you have to know these assumptions going into play, that your Social Security benefit statement that you download with the ladder of income that ranges from age 62 to age 67 is based on an assumption that you're going to continue to work until age 65. If you decide you're not going to work till age 65, there's a different, more manual calculator that you can use on the Social Security website that says, from age 50 to age 65, I'm not working. I'm not going to be pulling in an income. I'm work optional at that point. It will change your estimated benefits. Maybe not by a lot, but it could be some kind of difference that you want to plan on, so that you understand that your Social Security benefits that you're getting off this statement that's assuming you work till 65 is going to be different than what your benefits actually turn out to be if you stop working early. So Social Security benefits is based off the average it's based off the average highest 5 years of pay. Highest 5 years of pay.
Good point. And I don't know how many other rules we want to get into that are required for Social Security benefits. You also need what's the 40 credits.
40 credits.
40 credits, which is like basically 40 quarters or 10 years of qualified income. There's other things in there to work into it. But I think to your point, it's really significant is if you're going to do this planning, don't take the estimate that you get from Social Security at face value. There's plenty of calculators, including the one you mentioned, to go and do a little bit more refined analysis. I know for you and I, our clients, we actually put the historical earnings in and have other assumptions built in that actually it just does it automatically. So we get a clear picture of Social Security. So that's just, it's Social Security's way of just guessing, like, hey, based on the information we have, but you can do more to create a more refined number.
All right, Rob. So we've been dancing around this age 67 line. Mm-hmm. You can claim as early as age 62 in most cases, and you can wait to claim as late as age 70. What does that actually mean in terms of the benefits that you can expect to get?
Yeah, back up. 67 is the starting point. And I don't mean the starting point as in that's the earliest or the latest or whatever. That's just where we begin the calculations. Like you said, if you go up early to 62, your benefit's going to be reduced based on how early you take it. If you take it at 62, it's going to be a lot more reduced than you took it at 67. And on the flip side, if you take it after 67, then it starts to increase after that. So it begins to get higher and higher the later you wait up until age 70. I think it's important to note that it's not the same scale. There's three different scales of that calculation that happens. Let's start with the reduction because it's the most important one you need to consider. It's super simple, Omen. For the first 36 months...
Wait, we got to stop and laugh about that just a second.
Yeah. It's so easy. You'll remember this. You'll never forget. Yeah, if you take it from basically 64 to 67, it's 0.05% per month early that you take.
Yeah, that was so easy.
5/9. Easy. Because you could do 5/9 in your head of 1%, and then you multiply it by the number of months prior to age 67. Yeah, that's your deduction in permanent deduction in benefits going forward. But if you take it even earlier than that, it's a little bit better, I guess. It's 0.5% per month before age from like 62 to 64. So if you took it at like 60, I guess it's 63, then you would have 0.5% per month for 1 year. I got to be 5%. Look at that. And then for the next 36 months, it'd be 0.05% times 36. And then they apply that to that 67 number that you would have gotten at 67. And that's how much it reduces it by permanently going forward. After that, it's really nice because you get the benefit after 67. It's really nice because you get 8% a year of growth. That's
huge.
It's huge. And what investment gets a guaranteed 8% return? It's awesome. And I think just to understand that built into that number is some sort of like them expecting you to live a certain amount of time or not, right? So every year that you take off from 68 to 69 to 70, that's one less year they have to pay you. So the government knows compared to how long you're going to live, that's they can afford to increase it by 8%. So it's really good. So if you start super early, the deduction's lower. As you get close to 67, it's a little bit higher, and as you go past 67, the increase is really nice.
So that's a great lead into our next point. I'm going to just stop for just a second because we're talking about 5/9 and 5/12. It's not an exact sliding scale, right? But if you claim at age 62, you're getting a 30% reduction of your age 67 benefits.
Yeah.
And if you claim at age 70, you're getting a 24% increase of your age 67 benefits. So
it's huge.
Again,
it's huge.
It's not a linear sliding scale, but it is a pretty big difference between the two numbers. All right. So let's go into what we would refer to as kind of the default claiming strategy for Social Security. And that is to actually delay. And why? Well, Rob, you just brought it up. 8% per year for 3 years. That's a big difference in guaranteed pay for the rest of your life, because what do most retirees, if not all retirees, worry about? Running out of money. So if you have a guaranteed paycheck, i.e. a pension and Social Security that are both COLA adjusted and they continue to go for the rest of your life, you want the larger number, right?
Yeah, this is with the blinders on of everything else that you might need to consider, such as health or other factors, or a spouse that's involved, which we'll talk about. This is just from a dollar sense. Like, this is just math. So it's like, oh, let's start with the simplest thing. What looks best on paper? What's the best, well, we call investments, not return, maybe return. I don't know. Like, what's the best payout financially? You can start with that. And that's kind of where you default to. It's best if you wait.
And here's the thing is it requires some discipline. Because if you're going to wait on Social Security, let's say you stop working and you've got some form of income. Maybe you have a little bit, maybe you don't have any, I don't know. And what it's actually going to require you to do is actually lean in perhaps on your investments much earlier in your life in a heavier kind of way. Meaning you might actually be digging into some of the principle of your investments, which is not always a smart thing to do, right? Like we don't like, maybe it depends, right? It really depends on what your investments have. But you're doing this with the knowledge that by claiming at age 70, you are now going to bring in a guaranteed income that relieves a lot of pressure from your investments. So it's a short-term pain for a long-term payoff.
Yeah, maybe your investments only need to get you to 70 because Social Security on top of the pension and disability are going to float you to the end of your life. Maybe your investments only need to get you that far, in which case depleting the principal might be fine. Because, I just picture folks maybe in their mid-60s and they're like, hey, when we hit 70 and we start taking Social Security, now we can start traveling the way we really want to and enjoy our retirement. And they wait till 70 and their bodies feel much different, or maybe their health is much poorer than it was at 65. And now the reason why they waited is gone and they can't really enjoy it the way they wanted to. I know, I'm sorry, I'm teasing the next things we're going to talk about.
You're crushing the next point.
Okay, perfect. Good. That's exactly what I intended to do. So there you go.
Yeah, so we will get into that, right? Like, this is why this is the default strategy, because it's kind of the smartest way, like, that we can take advantage mathematically from the pension that's available, or I'm sorry, not pension, from Social Security that's available. We add in a spouse, and it adds in a different layer of income here, because the spouse is, and I say it doesn't matter who it is, right? This is when we wait till age 70, the benefit, whoever has the higher benefit of that is the one that we're going to wait till age 70. Why? Because when a spouse passes away, they're going to retain the highest level of benefit. So when you bring in a spouse, that lower benefit is going to, they could certainly claim on their own, but they're also going to receive what's called a top-up that will get them up to 50% of the higher earning benefit, which is another stream of guaranteed income. And so there is a strategy here, but what I really like about the spousal benefit is it provides flexibility, because you can certainly wait till age 67, which is probably the farthest I'd ever wait, is age 67 to claim for a spousal benefit. But if you need the income earlier, turn it on earlier.
Yeah.
Like, just turn it on.
Yeah, this adds the most valuable thing than almost anything else, including money, and that's flexibility. And it's really great when you see a client. It's kind of interesting. It doesn't make really any sense, but it's almost like when you see a client where one makes a lot more than the other, the first thing my brain clicks to is like, oh, this is a beautiful Social Security modeling tool. But
that's right.
I mean, it's so stupid, but it does create kind of like this flexibility of like, well, since the lower earner, the benefit isn't that great, or maybe isn't great compared to the one we're expecting from the higher earning, maybe we go ahead and take that at 62 and start to maybe enjoy a little bit of icing on the retirement income cake, knowing that other higher benefit, that we are maxing out the changes as it grows, quote unquote grows until they hit age 70. And then, like you said, unfortunately, if either spouse passes away, you have either further built-in options that you could take advantage of. This episode is brought to you by the Military Financial Advisors Association.
MFAA is a global network of independent, fee-only fiduciary financial advisors who specialize in serving military families.
And we're not just highlighting it. Omen and I are members ourselves, so we know firsthand what they stand for.
That's right. Every member of MFAA is either active duty, a veteran, or a military spouse, so they truly understand the unique financial challenges that come with military life.
Plus, every advisor must hold or be actively pursuing the CFP designation, which is the gold standard in financial planning.
So let's put that together. When you choose an advisor with MFAA, you are getting a professional who won't sell you a product, who knows the military life, and will plan using your hard-earned military benefits.
Whether you're navigating a step out of the military after 4 years, a military retirement, or a transition into a work-optional lifestyle, MFAA advisors speak your language.
Visit militaryfinancialadvisors.org to find an advisor who fits your mission.
MFAA, real advice, real experience.
This advertisement is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. All investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. Information and opinions provided within the fiscal foxhole do not necessarily reflect official positions or opinions of the Military Financial Advisors Association or its members. Consult a qualified financial professional before making any financial decisions.
So default strategy, we've talked through that a little bit. Wait till, if you're a single person, and if you can wait till age 70 to take your Social Security benefit, that is a mathematically best case scenario for you. If you have a spouse, then higher earner, they also wait till age 70, but the spouse can claim any point in time from age 62 all the way up until age 67. And so that's kind of the default. Now, Rob, you have already teased this out in what if it's not the default? What are some reasons why it wouldn't be the default? That's really our next point.
Okay, great. One thing to mention before we dive into that, I think it's probably obvious to our listeners, but once you plan ahead on when you're going to receive your benefit, it's not set in stone, right? We're talking about planning and how to plan ahead, right? If you get to 64 and something happens and you're like, well, I was planning on 67. I mean, you could just take it whenever you want. We're just talking about planning ahead. Life hits you, which is now what we're going to talk about. When you're young, and we're doing this for our clients who are younger, we try just to use the defaults, maybe full retirement age, 67 or 70, or do this thing where the person that's expected to make more, we model it as later. But when you're in your 30s, 40s, maybe even, 50s, we might kind of leave it alone until maybe we get closer. So it's just a general idea. We have a general idea what to expect. But when we get closer, then it's time to start to make some, I guess, more refined decisions. And that's based on many things. I would say the first one is probably health, right? Because there is I know we don't want to talk always just about the number value, but there is something to be considered that, let's say you've already survived a illness, like a cancer or something that could have been terminal, that you expect to maybe return on average in about 8 to 10 years, which, I've heard before. It's like, beat it now, but it's going to come around again and you know it. And you're 62 years old. Well, then perhaps it's time to go ahead and start taking that benefit, right? Because as we see these things and play the odds, I mean, it's so crude and morbid to make a financial decision tied in with something that's so precious as your health and your life. But when it comes to making a financial decision, it's important and prudent to look at how it impacts your life and the people you leave behind. So if you're sick at 62 and you go into remission, but it's coming back probably by the time you're 75, then there's a question of like, well, how do I best maybe leave my spouse or the legacy from my children, or live the best life that I can in the meantime? Maybe that's the most important one. That trip I wanted to take, and now I'm healthy enough to do it now, and Social Security early will help. Probably a good call.
Yeah, I actually don't have a whole lot to add to that, right? Because I think you said it best, is that you can plan ahead and say, I'm going to wait till age 70, but life hits you in the face.
Yeah.
And if it does, and when it does, you have the flexibility to say, you know what? We're ready to live right now. We need the money. Let's go ahead and turn on Social Security.
Yeah.
That is your choice. So it might have an impact on you on the back end, but at that moment, you're still getting a benefit, a guaranteed benefit, COLA adjusted through the rest of your life. And so maybe it's not supporting you the way you thought it would on the back end of your life, but you're still getting that benefit. So yeah, this is certainly one of those areas where We can plan all day long about what the mathematically correct way to claim Social Security is, but this is also one of those great benefits where you have the flexibility to turn it on when you need it.
Let's talk about maybe your emotional and mental health when it comes to your work. Because if you've planned on working to 65 and taking Social Security at 67, and you get to 62, and that's it. Like you made that decision when you were 50, and now you're 62, and your health is fine. You feel great, but you can't stay in your job anymore. Like I can't do this for another 3 years. I need to take my stapler and go home. Like I cannot do it. And
nice.
Then it's an honest discussion once again. Like, well, maybe taking it early, maybe both spouses taking it early is the difference you need to go ahead and do that age 62. And, who cares about reduction in benefits if it fixes the goal? And you're like, yeah, I'll take a 30% hit on my benefit from Social Security because I've got my pension, I've got my savings, I've got other things. And this difference in getting an early Social Security is the difference between losing my mind over the next 3 years of the quality of my life, and also will allow me to spend the time with my spouse that we've been waiting to prioritize ourselves, right? That's another one. Like, and that's not even health related. That's just quality of life.
I will note here that by the time you reach this point where you're deciding to turn on Social Security is also the point where you're probably deciding about decumulation, right? You've been accumulating and saving all your life, and now you're deciding on decumulation, which is a completely different muscle.
Yeah.
And I think people have a tendency to look at Social Security as a way to bypass decumulating their investments instead of waiting. So make sure that you're not doing that. That it is normal, it's expected that you're going to pull from your investments. And if you can pull from your investments to get you a little bit further along the claiming strategy for Social Security, do that. But don't use Social Security as a way to not pull from your investments because you've not experienced that before and it's scary.
That's an awesome point. I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of times people get to retirement and they're like, well, I have to do the 4% rule. That's all I can do. I'm going to take 4% of my balance every year and I'll be fine. Well, we add wrinkles in. Hey, maybe 6 to 8 or something like that over this period of time in order to get the increased benefit of Social Security down the road might be worth it. Yeah, it'll decumulate maybe, or it might grow. I don't know. But the point is when now you're just getting that increased benefit at 70, which then you don't really need to take such a high distribution from your retirement accounts.
Yeah. All right, Rob. So we've kind of covered the base strategy. We've covered how Social Security works, what the reduction looks like, what the increase looks like. Now let's bring into our discussion this yearly report that we get from the Social Security trustees that says that the trust is going to run out of money.
Yep.
So you already mentioned what your thoughts were kind of up front about the fact that we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
But we can look back at history to see some examples of what might happen. So back in the 1980s, I don't know if you remember this, Rob. I mean, you're older than I was, so you were at least in high school or something.
I had two
like that,
kids
right?
in a car by then, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So back in the 1980s, what did they do with the full retirement age?
Yeah, they changed it.
They changed it.
Right.
It used to be age 65. And actually, it is only just now getting to the point where if you were born after a certain year, your full retirement age is 67. That you and I today can say that that's pretty much the default for most of the people that we work with today. But
right.
Just a few years ago, that was not the case. Full retirement age crept up from age 65 to 65 and a half to 65 and 2/3, and then on and on. It just kept creeping up year over year until it finally got to age 67. Another example I want to point to is, what does Congress normally do about issues like this? I mean, have you ever known a Congress or a congressman, congresswoman who said, you know what, I see this coming 6, 7, 8 years away. I'm going to do something about it now. Have you ever seen that? Probably not.
I feel like,
probably not.
You're playing on my sentiments, which and
yes,
yeah, you're pulling me in. I'll take
That's
the
fine.
bait. I'll take the bait. No, yeah, they don't care because they want to get elected this year or next year. So
That's right.
yeah, they don't worry about future issues that are this one. What are we talking about? 10 years down the road that may come to face? I doubt they fix this anywhere even close in the next 5 to 10 years. I'd be shocked.
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways, and I don't know how they're going to fix this, but there are a couple different ways they can fix this, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can increase the claiming age again. They can increase Social Security tax, which right now is capped at 85%. They can reduce benefits. There's a number of ways that they can fix the problem. But the historical, I think the way that we could look at this historically is to consider that Congress is going to do a last minute fix. They're going to throw a bunch of trash in the same bill and say, we got to get that approved because it's also got Social Security attached to it.
Right.
And then there's going to be a fix that comes in and repairs Social Security to the point where we start to get, these new trust reports that say, okay, well, we're good for another 40 years.
I don't know. Did you see the notes I dropped in? What would happen? I actually kind of wanted to have a little debate about it real quick. And we could be super quick. We don't have to be. I'm just curious of what you think.
I'm just looking at your notes right now. Let's go.
This is how it happens, folks. We're making it in real time. It's down there below. Yeah, you'll see that the solutions, and there's a debate. I just listed 5 of the most common solutions. And I just want to get real quick fire. Like, what % chance do you think this is going to happen?
Okay.
All right. So right now, everyone pays 12.4% in taxes to the OASDI, which is Social Security. That's not what you pay. You and your employer pay. Actually, you're an employer for you, so you do pay 12.
Yeah, so you actually do pay it.
Yeah, right. So if one of the options is increasing that by 4%, what do you think the chances of that happening?
I'd give it a 70%.
I would say that's a significant increase of 4%. I would say that's extremely low. Eliminate the taxable wage cap or substantially raise it. Right now, what that means is if you earn over $176,000 in 2026, you don't pay Social Security that tax above $176,000. It caps out at $176 and no more. So, what do you think about them eliminating that, or substantially increasing it?
Oh, but that's a tough one because it really depends on if people think the rich should pay for that.
Yep.
Basically,
Yep.
That's what you're saying. So, that's tough. I think it's above 50%. I'd give it.
Probably. Me too. Despite my moral objections to the idea, I think it's very high because that's always where we turn to fix problems. Like, let's go to the high earners and let's bleed them a little bit more to fix it, or accept their gratitude or their accept their contributions a little bit more. All right, trimming benefits for higher earners. So we're actually still focusing on the people earning over 176. So in addition to maybe taxing them more, trimming their benefits, so still keeping that cap on Social Security benefits.
I think it'll be a low percentage.
Okay, I still think that one's higher. I think that's where we're going to turn to it. Is the higher earners, they're going to tax them and then also keep their benefits capped. Raise the retirement age.
Yes,
absolutely. You have to, and this
100%.
one makes the most sense because it's relative to how long people live. As people live longer, you got to raise the retirement age. And finally, tax more on Social Security benefits. So actually tax the benefits that people are. I think that's pretty low. Like that one, people. I don't know
really?
About that.
I think they're going to do it.
You think they're going to do it anyway? All right. So those are the most common, I think, solutions. But something has to be done. The one that. I know we'd be quick here, but you brought it up, is increasing the retirement age. I think they need to keep doing it because if you look back from the 80s even, and relative to how long people live, as that increases, like you have to kind of keep accounting for that. And I hear people say like, they expect me to work to 67. It's like, well, no, that's not what Social Security was intended really for. So the idea is it does need to get later in order to account for people living longer.
We'll wrap this up just by saying that I believe that you are correct that whatever happens with Social Security is not likely to affect those who are, one, already claiming it, or two, getting close to it. So probably if you're in your 40s right now, I'd say you're probably on the fence on whether or not you're affected by any kind of Social Security changes made. If you are younger than that, 30s, 20s, teens, that's probably who's going to feel this the most. That's my guess.
Yeah, but I'd hope they have to happen enough for you to account for them ahead of time. I doubt this is going to spring on you. Like even the full retirement age would varied based on when you were born, to not screw people that were so close to it, right? It kind of varied. You got an interesting question here, by the way. What if you're worried about these changes happening and you're getting close to 62 and you're like, well, I'm worried about a change coming even sooner. Like they're going to reduce them now, despite what we think. What if you're like, well, I better lock it in now. I'll go ahead and take my reduced benefit and lock it in to avoid any further reduction that might happen.
Yeah, so that is a valid point. I think that a lot of people, I've heard it. I've already heard it. Mm-hmm. And the thing is basically you are voluntarily taking a double reduction of benefits. Because what if they do reduce your benefit? Okay, but now you've just voluntarily, you're taking a known reduction of a benefit on top of a forced reduction of benefit. Whereas you have a choice in the matter of whether or not you take that reduction of 62. You can wait until age 67, you can wait till age 70 and get what's already built into the system because that is your choice. Whatever Congress comes back and says about what else they are going to do to Social Security, that is not necessarily your choice, but it is your choice when to claim it. So if you voluntarily take that reduction at age 62, you are in effect taking a double reduction of benefits.
And let me just lead this with the fact that I can't imagine they would reduce benefits for the people in that window. Like if they're going to say, hey, we're reducing future benefits, it's going to be people in their 20s and 30s because they have time to absorb that. Anyway, that aside, taking a permanent reduction in your benefits in order to secure yourself against a potential future reduction, it's like worrying that your house is going to get TP'd, so you go out and you do it yourself. Like...
It's a good way, though. Nobody's going to feel like, look at that.
At least
already done for us.
Yeah. I'm afraid I'm going to get hit with this loss, so I'm going to go ahead and lock it in and do it intentionally. I don't see the reason for that. I don't understand that. I understand the fear. Let me put it that way. But I just don't understand the action of reacting that. Again, like we always say, turn your focus towards your goals and what matters the most rather than the fear of the unknown.
Well, Rob, as we wrap up this segment here, I wanted to wrap it up with this. Your decision to claim Social Security is a very personal one. Don't let two guys on the internet tell you how to do this. We're just giving you the considerations as to why you might want to delay and why you might not want to delay, and some of the other considerations given the headlines that we've recently seen come through. So this is really up to you to do the homework, do the plan, and not be afraid to change the plan when it comes around. Your last thoughts?
That's beautiful. That's really great. Yeah, keep the main thing the main I love that, man. Nice work. I have two quick nuggets to help bring some more perspective in because I think this is a concern that builds anxiety in almost everyone. Actually, I'll just say three. The first one is the government's shown no fear of filling its obligations with money that it finds from anywhere or it creates itself. All right. So, and I know the government's aware of how people feel about Social Security. I would be shocked if there were substantial reductions to it. That said, you as the receiver, there's a couple ways you need to really start to process this in order to sleep better at night. Number one, stop viewing Social Security as an investment. It's not, all right? If you wanted to treat it like something else, maybe perhaps more like an annuity or an insurance product, because that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to insure you against running out of money in the rest of your life. We talked a few episodes ago about the value or the lack of value in annuities. I think this is just one of those things you're just going to have to take. You have to take it. It's not a good investment. It's not a good return, but you have to take it. It's in the law, so you might as well just digest it in that way and be like, okay, that's what it's going to be, and I have to deal with it that way. The other one is...
And you've already paid for it.
And you already paid for it. You have to. or go to prison. I don't know. Maybe that's your retirement plan. You could do that too. The other one is, this is why flexibility and goals are so valuable, because we've talked about keeping your goals flexible within your values. So let's say one of the values you've built is fishing. All right, I want to fish with my buddies or fish with my kids or whatever it is for the rest of my life. Omen, there's a big difference between buying a fishing cabin and a $40,000 fishing boat versus fishing in your local lakes and streams and having maybe a one long weekend fishing trip per year. but still doing the fishing trip, right? Or still doing the fishing activity, I should say. So in other words, build some flexibility and expectation in your goals. And therefore, okay, if Social Security is 30% less, all right, well, that might mean, is some reduction in the type of way you pursue your goal, but your goal can still remain the goal, right? As long as you have flexibility built in. This is the way, whether it's unfair or fair or not, a way for you to absorb these changes in a way that's really healthy and will keep you happy.
I love it. Great way to wrap up this segment of our episode. So let's head into our trivia segment, Now Cold or Throwaway Koa. This is the time of the show that I know our listeners love the most. Their chance to make fun of us because we have no idea what any question is going to be asked, any answer is going to be. Ultimately, this is the goal for me to get the most points I possibly can. Well, Rob gets the least amount of points he possibly can, which he's actually, you're doing a pretty good job, Rob.
Nailing it.
Yeah, absolutely nailing it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the year, we expect to get some listeners in guessing about how many I got right, how many Rob got wrong. But today, Rob, you get to ask me the question, and I mean, we've been all over Social Security, and we haven't even gotten to the technical challenges of it, really. Mm-hmm. And so I can't wait for this one. I already saw the smug look on your face. So, yeah, go on.
Even more smug than normal. It's funny. Just a reflection of what you just said about this is the time where they find out we actually don't really know anything. Hey, man, when you themed this in the theme of an op ord at the beginning of the episode, that was the sound of every radio clicking off that was listening to that. Like, oh, pass. I'm done already. So, hey, if you made it this far.
Already good enough of this at work.
Yeah, congratulations. If you made it this far, then you are used to the abuse that is built in with an op ord, and we're glad you're still with us. So this is the time I get to throw this obvious question to Omen, which I'm sure you're probably expecting. But with no further ado, here is the question for you, Omen, for today. When Social Security contributions and future benefits are analyzed like an investment, what is a reasonable estimate of the average inflation-adjusted rate of return for most individuals? So again, I prompted it with this is going to be your average rate of return experienced by a Social Security contributor and beneficiary when they retire. Is the average inflation-adjusted rate of return A, less than 0%, B, 3%, C, 6%, or D, 8%?
My gut reaction was low, but it wasn't less than 0% low. Although that very well could be. I'm just trying to think on some of the data you gave me in the question in terms of contributions, inflation adjusted, and lifespan. I'm thinking it's A or B. I'm going to go with B.
Go with B? I love it because, when I go with my gut first and then talk myself out of it. And this is you going with your gut, trying to talk yourself out of it, and then going back to your gut. It has served you well. It is B, 3%. Well done. Yeah. Which honestly was like a little higher than I thought it was going to be because, but I guess when you factor in, there's a lot of other stuff to consider with Social Security. It does get a bad rap. I'm not a huge fan. I'd rather have my cash and invest it in the way I want to. But there's other things like survivor's benefits and disability benefits. And there's a whole bunch more built into Social Security rather than just the retirement benefit or the old age the old age part of the old age and survivors, all that. There's a lot to it. So it is a beneficial thing. There's a lot of people, it's a safety net for a lot of folks that would be in pretty dire straits without it.
I think you would enjoy the cash. I think a lot of people enjoy the benefits, so they just don't have to think about it. So
fair enough. I know I'm a weirdo.
Great question. Yeah, you are a weirdo. So great question. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the win on that for sure. We'll take that one to the bank. But that is going to wrap it up for today's episode of the Fiscal Foxhole. Whether you're active duty, a retiree, or just trying to figure out this money thing, you are in the right place. And we're glad you're here. If you feel the show has been valuable to you, we'd love it if you'd pass it on. One share can change somebody's financial life. And of course, a 5-star review never hurt anyone either. It helps us get the word out. So until next week, Rob, what is our commander's intent?
Commander's intent number 1, get your stock, bond, your asset allocation right first. That's the North Star. Where you hold these investments, your asset location, only matters once you've figured out your risk. And even then, it's a tweak, not a game changer. Compander's intent number 2, full retirement age is 67 for most listeners. Claim early and lock in a permanent cut. Wait until 70 and lock in a permanent raise. Know the trade-off before you make the call. And Commander's intent number 3, a bigger benefit at 70, even potentially cut, still tends to beat a smaller check locked in at 62. Claim early for real reasons, health, job loss, actual need, not out of the fear of a headline.
We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions you'd like answered on the show, please send us a note to fiscalfoxhole@gmail.com. If you heard something today that you'd like to discuss further, or you just want to dig deeper into your own financial game plan, both Rob and Omen are accepting new clients and always happy to chat. You'll find the links to their websites or to book appointments in the show notes. Rob Moore and Omen Quelvog are both registered investment advisor representatives. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. While they are both advisors, they are not your advisors. Therefore, nothing you hear on Fiscal Foxhole should be taken as specific investment, legal, or tax advice. For guidance tailored to your situation, please consult a qualified professional who understands your individual circumstances.
Rob, we haven't talked about this yet, but so, my son and his new wife, they moved out to Albuquerque. He started to go through all the processes. And I remember going through this when I was in E3 with Megan as well, trying to get her into the system, right? Like all the things involved in that. He went to their Deers location out there, and he had an appointment and everything. I think he said they were in that office for 3 hours. And they spoke with 4 people, all of whom said that their certified copy of their marriage certificate was not valid for an ID card for her. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, man, it's been 25 years since I've had to go through that, and nothing has changed.
Yeah. Well, it's been 25 years you had to do that, but the levels of frustration remain. You dealt with that your whole career. Yep. I know you did. So did I.
Yeah. And here's the kicker is like, so I told him, I said, just keep in mind finance and Deers, 2 separate things. So you can take another stab at going back to Deers. Like, don't stab people, but like go back to Deers and give this another try. But you go over to your admin unit and you can at least get her added to your record as a spouse, get married, BAH, go in, all that. So they did. And I guess the conversation that they had with the admin, they showed them the certified copy of the marriage certificate, which they gladly accepted. And then they said, well, Deers won't. And they said, what? I said, this is exactly what they need. Yeah. And so some phone calls were made. They went back over to Deers. They talked to a 5th person, and they said, yeah, this is fine. Who said that you couldn't use this? And so they had to make another appointment. They weren't taken care of on the spot. They had to make another appointment. And I'm not sure if she has her ID card yet. Probably by the time this episode drops, she will have her ID card. But it's just, man, some things just never change.
Yeah. The bureaucracy of that type of thing in which common sense has no place. That's right. There's no point to be like, you're clearly married. It's clearly valid. That's what you're supposed to get our dependents and Deers. That's what the whole point is. And you've clearly showing valid. I mean, it's like, what's the flip of that? Like, oh, here's a soldier clearly trying to defraud us, by bringing this woman in and faking a very accurate looking. It's so stupid. That reminds me of a great story. You'll love this. Long ago when I was we had 2 kids at the time, but I was still pretty new father. I was maybe 30 years old. In the military, we took the kids to amusement park. My whole wallet got stolen. So military ID, driver's license, like everything gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And in order to get a military ID, you need the 18 forms of identification to prove you are who you are before you get a military ID. And then to get on base to do
You need
that,
your old ID to get your stolen ID.
right. And in order to get on base, in order to access that, you need your ID, which was stolen. So it was the summertime, dropped the kids off at daycare. My wife had to take a day off work to drive me onto post. We get on, and then we had to use her military ID to get on post. I had a hard time because I have no ID, but we had to explain to the gate, right? So we go in. This is the best part. I'm 31, 32 years old. I'm a father, married father, professional in the military. And I walk up there, and I've got everything I possibly could have. Birth certificate. I did have a valid passport. I had expired passport, expired driver's license. I had some things I'm like that I could cobble together. I'm like, look, I am who I say I am, right? And the person there, this is the best part. They're like, okay, all of this will work, but we need someone with E8 or above to sign the form. And I'm an E6 at the time.
Oh my gosh.
I'm at that point. I'm like, I don't
trust you.
Can't
trust you.
I'm like, oh, you're right, guy. Like, you can't trust me. And I'm like, okay, so now wife's gonna have to take another day off work tomorrow. I have to take her into my place of employment with the Army and another installation. Find some right? No, we're not going to do that. I said, okay, hold on. I turn around to the room full of all the poor souls that are going through this process that you explain. Like, is someone an E8 or higher that can sign this form, please? And one guy's like, he just looked at me like, I know what you're going through, man. I got you. He stood up. He was a first sergeant, walked over, and he's like, where do I sign? I mean, we did it right in front of her. Like, I don't know this guy. And she's like, yep, that'll do. I mean, it just shows how
That's awesome.
How absurd, like you said, the layers that are meant to be there to protect or make things honest. And then as long as you jump through these hoops as disingenuously as you do it, apparently, you can get it done.